monitors. This has not been brought up as a major issue that was noted. Agents of candidates being chased away. We as a commission, we receive complaints, including complaints to do with the process of elections. We would like to get this information from you in more concrete terms, not in general terms the way you have stated it. If you can provide us with specifics, we prefer to work with specifics, with facts, because our people have not given us these facts from the field. So we would like to benefit from you. Please give us the facts, specifics of which polling stations, which candidates, which agents were chased away, and chased away by whom? Is it by the polling officials, by security personnel, by, you know, the fellow candidates, or the agents of other candidates? Who specifically chased them away? Because now it is vague, the way it is stated. Now, nevertheless, from the point of view of the Commission, this should not happen at all, because the presence of candidates, agents at polling stations and doing their work is provided for under the law, provided that the candidates have nominated their agents properly and according to the law and the procedures, election procedures. No agent should be chased away unless the agent has breached the regulations and the law. Taken to temporarily suspend the internet and the social media, was it not a violation of people's rights to access information and to gather information? And others also asked questions similar, touching on the internet. Some of them have said, we have justified the action that was taken. Our approach is a human rights approach. We look at these issues from the point of view of human rights, but also the law, beginning with the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? What does the law say? Ideally, and I'm talking ideally, suspension of the internet should not be done. The internet has been in this country functioning for a long time, for years and years. It has not started functioning only during the election period. It has been functioning for years and years. You and I have been enjoying the internet and social media for years now. We've been enjoying it and enjoying it freely. And the government itself also, and our institution also, we benefit from the internet and for social media. Government also carries out a lot of transactions using the internet. So ideally, this should not happen. And we have been enjoying using this candidate better than the other one. But we had been told for a long time, for us, we are going into this election, we were going to do defiance. This was common knowledge. You know it yourself. There are some people who said, although you are going in elections, but for us we have another plan. Actually, they called it Plan B. We have another plan. You can go in elections. For us, we have Plan B. Others explained even what Plan B would be. I heard them with my own ears through your television channels, NTV, NBS, change. Those are the words I was seeing. Regime. For us, we went in for regime change. Please go and cross-check. These things were said openly. Want these things talking about what happened in Libya to come here, Somalia to come here, Sudan to come here, Yemen to come. Wouldn't this pose a threat to any reasonable Ugandan? If it does not pose a threat to any Ugandan, I would be very surprised and worried as a Ugandan. So government is saying because of those utterances, plans, which we had, I had them myself, and also the practical experience of November 18th and 19th last year, plus others, plus intelligence reports, they had to take this measure of temporarily suspending the internet. When that explanation is given to us, then it is up to us to decide whether it is a reasonable explanation or not reasonable explanation. I'm leaving that to you. And by the way, for you journalists, you also work in the interest of the public. What you interpret, you tell the public, they may go with what you have, your own interpretation. So I'm leaving it to you. That explanation which government, what we have done for us as a human rights institution is to highlight what government explanation is, and we're expected to do that. And I'm adding now that ideally suspension of the internet and social media should not happen. But when there is a threat and it is done, then I think we should take it positively as something that has been done in the interest of the country. But fortunately, government has started reopening the internet. I stressed, by the way, that government operations themselves were affected. Themselves were affected. The economy was affected, and the government benefits from the economy. So it's not something that they did because they enjoyed doing it. And we are not justifying it, but we must be objective and realistic about the situation as it obtains in the country. Particularly, I'm requesting you to consider, and you know, I have quoted you people. I've quoted that thing I saw running at the bottom of the television. If I'm wrong, I want you to tell me that I'm wrong. Maybe I was blind. For us, we did not go in the elections to win positions. We went in for regime change. What does that mean? It means, and for me as a human rights defender, it means this, that those people have gone into the election not to give the electorate an opportunity to listen to different views and choose the best and say, this is the best, these will be our leaders. For them, they had already taken a position, they had already made a choice, regime change. Now, that is against the spirit and letter of the elections, isn't it? Please think about it and decide for yourselves. You are Ugandans like me. So we regret the internet should not be blocked, social media should not be blocked, but I want to remind you what the Constitution says. And I think specifically Article 43, I think. Ruth? Is Ruth there? 43. We are the Constitution in Chapter 4 spells out the Bill of Rights, which we should enjoy, and we should enjoy them fully. And our commission is here to fight and protect you when you are enjoying your rights. But Article 43 says that some of those rights are not non-derogable. The non-derogable rights are listed under Article 44. The rest, they can be suspended, provided that the suspension of those rights or the limitations on those rights is justifiable within the ambience of democracy. So we can enjoy our rights, but we should know that not all rights can be enjoyed totally freely, unhindered, that they are all non-derogable. No, there are some rights in the interest of public interest and other interests. They can be limited. Please remember that Article 43 of the Constitution. Even when you are doing your work as journalists, you should remember that you have also rights as journalists, but your rights are not non-derogable. They can be limited. So be careful the way you enjoy your right, the way I also enjoy my right to defend your rights. Delivery of materials, opening polling late. Didn't this affect the rights of some people to cast their votes? In other words, you are saying, didn't this disenfranchise some people? That's actually, my friend, as it was, you remember in the election of 2016, this was a major problem, you remember, especially here in Kampala and Wakiso. And I want to tell you that during that election, the late Med Kagwa and I decided to stay in Kampala here to do our observation here. And we were all the time on phone ringing Badru Kigundu, Biribonu, and so on and so forth. Materials have not reached here. Please, please, please. So we are concerned about this issue of late delivery and late opening. At that time, in that 2016, and when we look at what has happened this year, we also look back and see what happened in the previous elections. 2016, the problem was much more pronounced, and it had serious effects. Some people walked out of lines and they went away in disgust. Some people never came back. Others, opportunities were given by extension of the voting period. In some areas, period voting went on even the following day. So some people came back, but the others who did not come back, so they were disenfranchised. This time around, yes, materials in a number of, not most, in a number of stations were delivered late. And we have taken keen interest in this one because it affected the previous one. We also looked, as you've seen, we were calculating the time, looking at the watch, and we were marking exactly when the material was delivered. The most extreme cases, the materials never went, delivery of materials, late delivery never went beyond 11 midday. In most cases, by 9:30, late, yes, but by 9:30, the material had been delivered. Voting, 10:30 starts. There was a significant improvement from what happened in 2016 and what happened this time. We want to recognize that improvement, and we commend it. In any case, we took keen interest to know whether there were any polling stations where closing was extended beyond 4 p.m. I've not heard of any. In all polling stations, by 4 p.m., the polling officials realized that the numbers had dwindled. They only allowed those who were in the line, and they all voted. Nobody was turned away. And voting was not extended anywhere beyond 4 p.m. Meaning that although voting started late, but in all polling stations, the people who turned up voted. And we've not had complaints. I'm hearing them for the first time here, that people were disenfranchised. We took keen interest in this one because it touches on a very important right. So we are satisfied that this time the Electoral Commission made significant improvements, and we commend them as compared to 2016 in delivering materials, in expediting the process of voting, even the biometric system. It had challenges, it had problems, but the Electoral Commission, because I remember myself lifting this phone of mine and calling the numbers they had given to us at the Electoral Commission to raise complaints. One of them was in Buikwe there. I told them about Buikwe, and they acted immediately in Buikwe. There was a place, a polling station where materials were late. So this time they made serious efforts and significant improvements were made. We have not had reports of disenfranchisement of people. Heavy deployment of security forces. Didn't this scare away many voters? The information we have received from our staff who went out in the field, and as I have said, by the one I want to stress this, from the media, from you, your media. And I have been following very keenly. I'm a very keen follower of the media, television, all the channels I keep changing. Radio, we have not had reports of the security forces, their presence, because it was heavy deployment, scaring away voters. If they did, but Kampala here and Central Region, where there was such a heavy turn-up of voters, moreover voted for the opposition. In Kampala here and Central Region, they voted for the opposition in big numbers. Did the security forces fear to turn them away? How do you explain that? Some of these things, allegations we make, we must really back them with facts, not make them for the sake of foreigners hearing us make them one. No, please, this is our country. Actually, the security deployment has been commended by people whom I have heard even on radios, your radios, commending, saying if the heavy deployment was not done, many people had even run away from Kampala here. Many people had run away from Kampala, run away into the countryside. Some people who were supposed to vote here, they ran away because they thought there was going to be chaos here. Me, I was in Hoima for Christmas. People were scaring me not to come back to Kampala here. There are other colleagues here in the commission who were also being told wherever they had scattered, why are you going back to Kampala? There's going to be trouble there. There's going to be chaos there. Riots again. Heavy deployment was done in our view. It was necessary. Our concern was, are the deployed operatives doing their work, following the law and respecting people's rights? And we are satisfied. We are satisfied on the whole. Heavy deployment did not negatively impact the election. Somebody raised from NTV, there was the question of do Ugandans still have the freedom of assembly? Do Ugandans still have the freedom of assembly? I don't know, maybe the person who has asked that question should help me to answer it. Do you have some evidence which you would like to give us that Ugandans now don't have freedom of assembly? All I know is that during the campaigns, this freedom of assembly, which we champion, which we protect as an institution, was affected by the guidelines that were provided by the Ministry of Health, based on scientific, advice, starting with World Health Organization, coming down to our own scientists here in Uganda, and medical workers who said, please let us observe operating procedures. Let us limit the number of people who can assemble. So the freedom of assembly was affected in that way. Nevertheless, some people totally ignored the SOPs and the regulations from the Ministry of Health. They ignored them totally. You would see a political leader, a candidate, throughout the entire campaign process, never putting on a mask. Totally, never. If I'm telling lies, please, I'm available. Challenge me. Somebody campaigns from day 1 to day Z without putting on a mask, without encouraging the people is coming among supporters, put on masks. And therefore, not encouraging people not to assemble in big numbers. So they disobeyed the guidelines. They overlooked them. So that's the only situation which I can think of when the freedom of assembly was limited, and necessarily so. But otherwise, for us, we are satisfied. Besides the impact of COVID-19, the freedom of assembly, and also these statements made threatening violence, riots, and so on and so forth, and therefore people who are gathering suspected to be likely to cause violence, they have to be dispersed. Otherwise, the freedom is still there for enjoying, assembling, and doing whatever we want to do. I would like to call upon Ugandans, through you, the journalists, please let us be objective, let us educate our people, let our people also cooperate with security agencies, let our people also observe the guidelines provided for our own good by the Ministry of Health. Then we will enjoy all our other rights. Can the Commission say the election was free and fair? We have already stated it in our statement, and we've given the reasons why. We think the process, the way it was conducted, there was peace, there was stability, there was tranquility. People accessed the polling stations freely. They were assisted, and they voted in big numbers. This has been acknowledged even by other observers. Now, we have also said, those who think otherwise, and they think that the election was not free and fair, and they are not satisfied with the results, they are entitled to that. But we encourage them to be factual, and collect evidence, follow the law, go to court. Some people have called the courts in Uganda as Museveni's courts. I don't agree. We in the commission don't agree that this is true. There is a process of selecting judges in this country, isn't it? It's a process. These days, there is a body which selects the people who will be recommended to become judges. This is the Judicial Service Commission. Yes, Judicial Service Commission. These are professionals. They belong maybe to all political opinions, all tribes, all religions. They will do their work professionally. They interview people. Actually, people apply to become judges. They apply, they are shortlisted, they are interviewed, and they are selected. And they are vetted by Parliament, elected by us, including the opposition. They are vetted and passed by the Parliamentary Vetting Committee. That's when they become judges. So to call them Museveni's judges, government judges, whatnot, I think it's not realistic. So those who are not satisfied, we are encouraging them. And I want to stress this, please listen to me, those who are talking. The lady is there. Please encourage our people who are not satisfied with the results of the elections not to burn petrol stations, not to take tires on the streets and burn our tarmac roads, which have been built with money we have borrowed, which you and I have to pay tax to build those roads. And we need the roads. If you don't need them, then I'm surprised. But you take tires, enlightened people in Kampala take tires and burn a newly constructed northern bypass, tires there, and destroy it, burn people's cars, burn buildings, destroy people's properties. Please let our people avoid that. It's not necessary. Libya since 2011 up to now, you know what is happening there? They have not settled at all. Yemen, see what is happening there. Somalia, see what is happening there. Is that what we want here? Please, let those who are not satisfied go to court, up to the highest court of appeal, and seek redress there. And we will support them. We will advocate for support for them. If they have not explained that, we appeal to them to explain, to be transparent about it. We appeal to them too. By the way, what is happening here is not unique. And what is happening here, some of the things happening here, are not the worst. See what is happening in America now. Tomorrow, Biden is going to be inaugurated. Look at the security detail in Washington. Eh? I don't know. You are the people who were showing it on television even last night. I've never seen a thing like that. And I never expected so much deployment in a mighty United States of America. I never expected that. But necessity is there. They have had to do that, have a deployment. If they don't, you know what will happen? Because they tested it the other day. Their parliament was invaded by those thugs who are planning now to cause havoc throughout the country. So the people who are also guiding us, including ambassadors and so on and so forth, they should take that kind of development into context, you know, and also look at our conditions here objectively. The shutdown of the internet, hasn't this affected the fairness of the election. Hasn't this affected the fairness of the election? From the reports I have received from our observers, and our observers are also a mixture of all sorts of people. They don't all think alike. Even ideologically, they are not the same. They do their work professionally. And they went out and did their work professionally. None of them has reported that the temporary close of the internet and the social media prevented people from voting, and voting freely, and voting in large numbers. No, on the contrary, actually, people turned up in big numbers, in big numbers to vote, and they voted freely. So I don't think it did. We have summarized in our statement the effects, including negative effects that are regulated, but preventing people to go and vote people of their choice, I don't think so. If anything, me personally, I think, and I've heard many young people among journalists on radio talking, saying they are happy that it was done. Misinformation had become a menace in this country. And it is true, there is too much misinformation, disinformation, distortions, and so on, poisonous. Please do your work. Journalists are also educators. Educate the people to avoid these evils, disinformation, deliberate distortions, incitement, and so on and so forth. There will be no need for shutting the internet, in my view. That's what I think. Agents of the opposition arrested. We are going to give you more time to ask questions. Can we operate in an orderly manner? Now let me answer it in a crude manner. You have talked about NUP, and you are always talking about NUP, by the way. Very interesting. As far as I'm concerned, NUP, in its strongholds, performed very well. Dislodged not only NRM, but even FDC and DP. Didn't they? Didn't they then protect their vote? Did anybody prevent them from protecting their vote? Please give us facts for us as a commission to protect your rights. That's our work. We are paid for that. We need facts. We don't want speculation. NUP we are talking about performed very well in the central region here. Didn't they? Heavy turn-up of voters voted for NUP. Even those who used to vote for FDC turned to vote for NUP. DP turned to vote for NUP. And they are going to be the main opposition in parliament now. So, how did they get these votes if the internet prevented support for them? I don't agree with your reasoning. I know if you say, as we have said in our statement, there were limitations in terms of providing information to the people widely as freely as possible for that limited period of, is it 4 or 5 days? Yes, it was. We would have wanted information to flow freely without any hindrance if there was no security threat. But for us, we also recognize the security threat. For us in the commission, at least some of us recognize that there was actually security threat, including distortion, misinformation, and so on, some of which you keep quiet about. No. But otherwise, I don't agree that NUP's support was affected in terms of winning the election because of the closure of the internet. I don't think so. But to getting facts and information from you, agents of the opposition arrested, that question was not very clear to me. The person who asked it is still here? Yeah. Agents of opposition being arrested. And their materials confiscated. Well, you've heard the statement I have read. If we had had that information, it would be here. There are many negative things we have pointed out here. We are not hiding anything. We would have pointed it out here. You get it? We would have pointed it, because it's in our interest to point, it's in the interest of our country for us to point them out here. Please, if there is anybody who has that information and factual, credible, give it to us, give it to Ruth, she's still there at the back there. We need it. But for us, so far, we've not had it. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, before I make this media statement, allow me to congratulate His Excellency Yoweri Tubuhaburwa Kaguta Museveni on his election as the President of the Republic of Uganda. I would also like to congratulate all the other candidates who were elected in the various positions. Also, I would like to congratulate the candidates hope it's not sabotage. I would also like to congratulate all the candidates at presidential and parliamentary levels who participated in the elections for offering themselves to serve the people of Uganda and our country, Uganda. As you might all know, on 14th January 2021, Uganda conducted the presidential and parliamentary elections in fulfillment of the citizens' right to vote as provided for under Article 59 of the 1995 Constitution of Uganda. The Uganda Human Rights Commission therefore congratulates the people of Uganda for turning up in big numbers on this day and actively participating in the electoral exercise. The Commission also appreciates the Electoral Commission for the great, wonderful work done specifically in managing this noble task, as well as the role played by law enforcement institutions in working to keep law and order throughout the electoral period and throughout the whole country. I would like also to appreciate the contribution made by the staff of the Electoral Commission, district returning officers, polling assistants, and all the people who managed or supported the polling exercise at different levels. In fulfillment of its constitutional mandate to monitor the human rights situation in the country, the Commission sent out 183, I repeat, 183 election observers, and they monitored a total of 1,830 polling stations scattered across the country. We have 10 regional offices and 12 field offices in the more difficult regions of the country to reach. So these stations were scattered in all these areas. It should be noted that the Commission had been monitoring and observing the human rights situation during the previous stages of the electoral process, starting from the launch of the Election Commission roadmap, which was launched in 2018. However, this media statement is limited to the polling day of 14th January 2021. The rest of the stages of the general election, before the polling day and now after, all those stages will be covered in the Commission's detailed report, which will be released later on. This preliminary media statement is therefore based on the Commission's observations from the polling stations that we have visited countrywide, as well as the information gathered from the Commission's situation room, which we set up here, from various sources, including verified, and I'm stressing that word, verified information from the media, specifically radio, television, and Twitter before it was switched off. Now let me talk about the polling day observation. Observed that the general elections were peaceful in the majority of the polling stations. Voter turnout was very high in many of the polling stations, except in Gulu and Koboko districts where the turnout was rather low. The Commission therefore commends the government of Uganda, the Electoral Commission, and the voters for maintaining peace and stability during this electoral period. Then we also would like to say something about the temporary suspension of the internet and social media. On 13th January 2021, the Uganda Communications Commission issued a directive to all internet service providers in the country to immediately suspend access and use, direct or otherwise, of all social media platforms and online messaging applications over all networks until further notice. The suspension of internet in the country, of course, affected access to information and also affected freedom of expression, and has affected at least 17.5 million internet subscribers around the country. The Commission would like to specifically note that social media is a highly interactive platform through which individuals and communities share, co-create, discuss, and generate content, so that the people's right to effectively participate and interact during the voting period is realized. Other than disconnection of the internet affecting communication channels, it also greatly affected people's livelihoods, particularly banks, bank services, mobile money services, the media, online education, especially during this COVID-19 period, and other areas like that. On Saturday, 16th January 2021, the government gave an explanation as to why the internet and social media were suspended. The reasons for the suspension include the following. One, it was a security measure that was taken following intelligence reports of possible security threats, including the threat of terrorism, riots, outbreak of violence, among others. Two, to prevent or stem misinformation, disinformation, deliberate distortion of information, deliberate ill-intentioned discrediting of opponents, incitement of riots and violence, among others. The third reason the third point of explanation, that what was done to temporarily shut the internet and social media, this was done in line with Articles 41 and 43 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, which provide for general limitation on fundamental and other human rights and freedoms. Limitations are justifiable within a democratic society like ours. Article 41 specifically stipulates that every citizen has a right of access to information in the possession of the state or any other organ or agency of the state, except where the release of information is likely to prejudice the security or sovereignty of the state or interfere with the right to the privacy of any other person. Government regulated the inconveniences caused to the public, including the inconveniences caused to government operations. The government promised to systematically reopen the internet, and this was done starting from yesterday, Monday 18th, January 2021, in the morning, maybe around 11 a.m. there. But this depended on the intelligence reports and audit of the actual security situation in Kampala city and other parts of the country. We also would like to talk about late delivery of election materials and opening of polling stations. The Commission observed that there were delays in opening polling stations in some parts of the country. I'm stressing some parts of the country, not everywhere. By 7:30 a.m., some polling stations in Kampala, Masaka, Yantonde, Mbarara, Jinja, Zombo, Kasese, Nakaseke, Mpigi, Gulu, particularly Peche grounds, where there were 6 polling stations, and Mbale city had not yet been opened, 7:30. To be more specific, most polling stations in Gulu City East and West constituency received voting materials between 9 and 10 a.m. In particular, at Vanguard OL polling station, and indeed 5 other polling stations located within Peche Stadium, polling materials were received at 9:45 a.m. and voting began at 10:41 a.m. I'm stressing that you can see we are very exact. 10:41, we were looking at the watch. Late delivery of voting materials was not only registered in Gulu, in Albertong district, at Olaromo polling station in Moroto County in Albertong district, voting started at 11:10 a.m. after materials were delivered at 10 a.m. Similarly, in Lira district, Bardiang polling station in Alibere parish, in Itek sub-county in Erute South constituency, Lira district, voting materials were received at 11:40 a.m. and voting started at 12:20 p.m. Furthermore, at Aminyang polling station, Amuka parish in Lira City West Division, voting materials were delivered at 11 a.m. Other polling stations where late delivery of voting materials were registered were Ambalao Primary School in Lira City. Here it was delivered at 8:34 a.m. Aminyang polling station in Amuka Ward and Kichope, AL to AZ, where voting started at 11 a.m. again due to late delivery of materials. It was also noted that in some of the polling stations across the country where voting materials were delivered in time, and we want to stress here, most polling stations across the country, efforts were made to deliver materials on time. Even in this situation, voting was still delayed because of lack of quorum for the required number of 10 voters. Procedurally, for voting process to commence at any polling station, there must be at least 10 registered voters present to witness and verify the voting materials delivered at the polling station. For example, at Dogtoki Market polling station in Itochi constituency in Omoro district, voting had not yet started by 12 p.m. because there was no such a quorum, 10 people, voters to verify. The Commission also observed that the biometric voter verification system did not work properly in some of the polling stations around the country. In other areas, the biometric machines were also noted to have been very slow. As a result, there were delays in opening polling stations and starting of the voting. The non-functionality of the biometric voter verification system, therefore, caused a lot of anxiety among voters as they waited in long queues. However, it was later made clear that the biometric machines failed to function because of limited information on how to operate them, and also in some areas like Wakiso here, lack of passwords and other technical challenges. The chairperson of the Electoral Commission guided on the necessary interventions to help guide the use of the voters' register to expedite the process. In other words, the biometric machines were very slow, and this was seen at Namugongo polling stations in Kampala. This is another example. Another challenge, rains also disrupted voting in a number of polling stations, particularly in Mbarara, Kasese, Jinja, Mitiana, Mubende, Buikwe, Kyotera, Sembabule, Rakai, and Masaka districts. The rains, however, did not stop the exercise from taking place. Despite the late opening of some polling stations, the challenges brought about by the biometric machines were resolved, and voting went on after that very smoothly. And we are happy about that. Now let us also talk about adherence to COVID-19, basically non-adherence. The Commission noted that while the Electoral Commission had provided hand sanitizers and hand washing points, many of the voters did not adhere to the COVID-19 guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health. While the majority of people were seen wearing masks, social distancing was not observed at most polling stations, where people were seen standing very close to each other in long queues. The Commission further noted that after using the biometric machines, and I also add pens, which were found in the basins where they were marking, voters were not sanitizing, and neither did they wash hands on their way out of the polling stations. The Commission also noted that some election officers were not provided with temperature guns for use during the voting exercise to take temperature. As a result, voters remained at a high risk of contracting and then spreading COVID-19 virus. The Commission also noted overcrowding in many polling stations due to the late start of voting, but also high turnout, and this also added to the threat of the spread of COVID-19. What about vulnerable persons in the exercise? Uganda is a signatory to international and regional human rights instruments that contain provisions for the facilitation of all persons of voting age to participate in electoral processes at all polling levels, and specifically Article 29 of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the CRPD, requires state parties to guarantee persons with disabilities with political rights and the opportunity to enjoy them on equal basis with others, right of voting. However, the Commission noted that there were several barriers that hindered effective participation of persons with disabilities in the electoral process. Some of these challenges included lack of access to information, for example, through braille and large print materials, inadequate voter education, lack of access to communication barriers, which included the absence of sign language interpreters and other election procedures, as well as some discrimination of people with disabilities, and poor infrastructure, which did not provide reasonable access to polling stations by people with disabilities. In Zombo district at Paida compound polling station, for example, the Commission noted that the designated area was not easily accessible by older persons, expectant mothers, breastfeeding mothers carrying babies, and persons with disabilities, due to the high terrain. The polling station was at high terrain. The elderly were also reported to have faced challenges with voting, and many were seen getting stuck at the basins due to lack of guidance and effective voter education, not knowing how to use the pen to mark, to tick, or to put the thumb against the people, the candidates of their choice. The Commission, however, appreciates the efforts made by the Electoral Commission in ensuring that majority of the polling stations were designated in open spaces with flat ground in order to enable persons with disabilities and other vulnerable persons to access them. The Commission, nevertheless, calls upon the Electoral Commission to put more effort in voter education, which should be inclusive for all the people, persons with disabilities, the elderly, and ethnic minorities. That is for the future. Then, the performance of the security forces. The Commission noted heavy deployment of the army, police, crime preventers, and other security agencies during the 14th January elections in areas of Kampala, Central, Kamwocha, Ntinda, and the districts of Arua, Bundibujo, Buikwe, particularly Lugazi, Gulu, Obongi, Nebi, Jinja, and Zombo. There was such a heavy presence of the army, police, crime preventers, and prison warders. In Nebi district and Obongi district, there was heavy deployment and presence of security personnel even after voting, which was mainly prompted by the youth who had started gathering in groups and causing suspicion. The Commission, however, notes that although some voters alleged, and I'm stressing alleged, that they felt intimidated by the presence of the army and security agencies, on the whole, the heavy deployment of the army and security agencies did not cause any inconveniences to voters in exercising their right to vote. In fact, many voters told us that they felt secure due to the presence of the security forces. In majority of the areas where the army and security agencies were deployed, the security agencies or the security personnel remained disciplined. They carried out their work in an orderly manner and executed their duties professionally. And we commend that. Now on the issue of candidates' agents. The Commission observed that in many of the polling stations, some presidential candidates did not have agents at polling stations. The Commission noted that the candidates' agents were mainly from NRM, NUP, FDC, and DP. It was, however, noted that candidates' agents who were present at polling stations were respected by polling officials as stipulated under the law. They were respected. The Commission further noted that although candidates' agents were absent in many places, this did not in any way affect the voting exercise or the counting of votes. However, the Commission notes that the presence of candidates' agents is very crucial during the voting exercise, particularly at the stage of counting votes and the signing of the declaration forms. The Commission, therefore, calls upon all candidates, especially now in the remaining polling exercises, to ensure that their agents are present at all polling stations in order to ensure transparency in all the electoral processes. There were also some arrests and detentions. On the polling day, the Commission received reports of the arrest and detention of 27 people in Kampala for allegedly setting up a talent center at Hotel Africana. And these were from civil society organizations, including Alliance for Finance Monitoring, Women's Democracy Network, and Center for Constitutional Democracy and NGO Forum. The arrested persons were first detained at Kibuli Police Station and thereafter transferred to Jinja Road Police Station, 17 of them, and Kabargal Police Stations, 10 of them, respectively. While the civil society organizations allege that the center at Hotel Africana was for the purpose of data collection, the police suspected it to be a tally center. According to Article 61, Sub-Article 1D of the Constitution, the Electoral Commission is the only institution with the powers of ascertaining, publishing, and declaring the final results of the elections or referenda. The Commission, therefore, followed up on this matter of the arrested 27 people. I was in the forefront of following up, and at the moment, the arrested persons have been released, but released on police bond, because the police must do its work to find out exactly what these people were doing. The Commission also noted other arrests at polling stations in Manafa district, where a driver of one of the contestants for Member of Parliament was arrested for allegedly bribing and influencing voters. While in Hoima City, an agent of one of the contestants for Member of Parliament was also arrested for allegedly bribing voters by issuing them with money. A similar incident was reported in Makindye East, where Mr. Mike Mabike, one of the contestants, was arrested for allegedly bribing voters on the eve of the election. Mr. Mabike was later released on police bond. In Namutumba, Bukono constituency, one candidate was arrested for allegedly bribing voters, and in Kayunga district, Honorable Aida Nantaba's agents were arrested on the eve of the elections, prompting her to request the Electoral Commission to cancel the election. But I'm glad you must have heard the election was not cancelled, and Nantaba is now the elected Member of Parliament. The Commission commends the interventions that were made to prevent breach of the relevant laws in this respect, to prevent voter bribery, and so on. We commend those efforts. What about the adequacy and efficiency of the polling officials? We noted that the Electoral Commission officials were understaffed in many polling centers, and as such did not have adequate capacity to deal with the challenges arising from observing the standard operating procedures and the non-functionality of the biometric machines. These problems stretched the capacity of the limited number of staff. The Commission, however, notes that although the number of election officials was inadequate in some places, this did not affect the voting exercise. In conclusion, based on the extensive observation of the polling exercise that was done countrywide, as well as the verified reports that were received from the media, contacts with other election observers, both nationally and those from outside the country, and other sources, the Commission has concluded that on the whole, the presidential and parliamentary polling exercise was carried out within a secure, peaceful, and tranquil atmosphere, which enabled a fair process of voting and also enabled the fulfillment of the freedom of choice by the voters of their leaders and representatives. I therefore wish to conclude by commending Ugandans for turning up in big numbers to exercise their right to vote, but also for maintaining peace and stability during the voting exercise. I would also like to encourage those not satisfied with the results of this exercise to use the law for redress and to totally avoid resorting to intimidation, violence, riots, destruction of property and life. The Commission therefore calls upon everyone to continue maintaining peace after this period and to accept the results of the vote as declared, and to do this for the good of our country. The Commission will issue a detailed report on its findings for the entire electoral process in due course. And I have said all this, we have said all this for God and our country. And I have signed this statement. Thank you very much.